The timeless mystique of Nostradamus, prophet, physician, or enigma. Welcome to Bytes, where we explore the lives of history's most fascinating figures. From revolutionaries to visionaries, we uncover the stories behind the legends. Join us as we delve into the extraordinary life of Nostradamus, the man who shaped centuries of intrigue and mystery. Let's begin. Michel de Nostredame, better known to history as Nostradamus, remains one of the most enigmatic figures of the past 5 centuries. Born in 1503 in the Provence region of France, he was a physician, an apothecary, and a man of learning whose life was shaped by the turbulence and uncertainties of the Renaissance era. Yet it is not his work in medicine that earned him a lasting place in history, but rather his cryptic writings and uncanny predictions. Nostradamus is most famous for his Prophecies, a collection of nearly 1,000 quatrains, 4-line poems, that purportedly forecast events far beyond his lifetime. Written in vague, symbolic language and couched in the esoteric style of his era, these verses have fascinated and perplexed readers for generations. Wars, natural disasters, political upheavals, and even the rise and fall of empires, his quatrains seem to foretell them all, yet always left just enough room for interpretation. From the Great Fire of London to the French Revolution, and even events of the modern age like the rise of Hitler and the September 11th attacks, believers have credited Nostradamus with an extraordinary ability to foresee the future. Skeptics, however, argue that his writings are simply so ambiguous that they can be stretched to fit almost any event. Regardless of one's perspective, there's no denying the lasting allure of Nostradamus's work. His life, shaped by personal tragedies, his career as a plague doctor, and his intellectual pursuits, adds layers of complexity to his legacy. To this day, his name is synonymous with prophecy, and his writings continue to inspire curiosity, debate, and even fear. Whether seen as a visionary or a clever poet, Nostradamus has left an indelible mark on the cultural and intellectual history of the world. His story invites us to explore not just the man himself, but the human fascination with the mysteries of fate and the future. Michel de Nostredame, known to the world as Nostradamus, was born in 1503 in the small town of Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, nestled in the Provence region of southern France. The exact date of his birth is uncertain, but most accounts suggest it was in December, likely the 14th or 21st. His early years unfolded in a world rich with cultural crossroads, but also marked by social and religious upheaval. Nostradamus came from a family with a complex and intriguing background. His father, Jacques or Jean de Nostredame, was a notary, working as a legal official for the local government, a position that placed the family in the educated middle class. His mother, Renière de Saint-Rémy, was the granddaughter of Pierre de Saint-Rémy, a prominent physician. This lineage of intellectual and professional engagement likely planted the seeds of learning and curiosity in the young Michel. A particularly intriguing aspect of Nostradamus's family history is their possible Jewish heritage. During the High Middle Ages, many Jewish families in France faced persecution and were forced to choose between conversion to Christianity or expulsion. Nostradamus's paternal grandfather, Cresquas, converted to Catholicism during this era, taking on the Christian name Pierre and adopting the surname Nostradame, which means Our Lady, a reference to the Virgin Mary. This act of conversion, likely driven by necessity, would have allowed the family to navigate the difficult social and political pressures of their time. This dual heritage, rooted in both Jewish and Christian traditions, may have shaped Nostradamus's intellectual development. Jewish mysticism, particularly the Kabbalah, flourished in southern France during the 12th and 13th centuries, and its esoteric ideas about the universe, time, and the divine might have subtly influenced his later writings. The Provence of Nostradamus's childhood was a region steeped in cultural diversity and intellectual ferment. It was a place where ancient traditions mingled with emerging ideas, creating an environment ripe for curiosity and exploration. This backdrop, coupled with the family's emphasis on education, likely laid the foundation for his later pursuits in medicine, astrology, and eventually, prophecy. Despite the limited records of Nostradamus's early life, it is clear that his family's resilience and intellectual heritage profoundly shaped the man he would become. From these roots, in a turbulent yet vibrant era, Michel de Nostredame began his journey, one that would lead him to become one of history's most enigmatic figures. As a young man, Michel de Nostredame embarked on an educational journey that reflected the intellectual ambitions of his family and his own innate curiosity. In 1518, at just 14 years old, he enrolled at the University of Avignon, one of France's most prestigious academic institutions, to pursue his baccalaureate. Here, his studies focused on grammar, rhetoric, and logic, core disciplines of the time, alongside the works of classical thinkers like Aristotle and Cicero. However, his time at Avignon was abruptly cut short by a devastating outbreak of the bubonic plague. The university closed its doors as the plague ravaged the region, forcing students to disperse for their safety. For young Michel, this unforeseen disruption marked a turning point. Unable to continue his formal studies, he began traveling across southern France and possibly other parts of Western Europe, seeking practical knowledge and new experiences. During this period, Nostradamus began informally studying medicine and healing. He likely gained exposure to the practices of local apothecaries, herbalists, and folk healers, knowledge that would later become the cornerstone of his medical career. These formative years on the road provided him with a diverse and unconventional education, deeply rooted in observation and hands-on learning. By 1529, Nostradamus's desire to formalize his medical knowledge led him to enroll at the University of Montpellier, home to one of Europe's oldest and most respected medical schools. Here, he sought to refine his understanding of medicine and earn the title of physician. However, his tenure at Montpellier was short-lived. The university discovered that Nostradamus had previously worked as an apothecary, a manual trade that was explicitly prohibited under the institution's statutes. In an era when universities were dominated by the sons of the nobility and gentry, such rules sought to maintain the exclusivity of academic professions. Nostradamus's expulsion from Montpellier was swift, and a record of his dismissal still exists in the university's archives. Although this setback could have derailed his ambitions, Nostradamus instead used it as fuel to carve his own path. He returned to his work as an apothecary, honing his skills in preparing herbal remedies and other treatments. Over time, he gained a reputation as a skilled healer, particularly in combating the bubonic plague. His methods, which emphasized hygiene, fresh air, and sanitation over the traditional practice of bloodletting, were both innovative and effective for the time. This blend of formal education, informal learning, and practical experience allowed Nostradamus to develop a holistic approach to medicine. The challenges he faced, both personal and professional, shaped him into a resilient and resourceful physician. These early experiences not only defined his medical career, but also laid the groundwork for the intellectual pursuits that would later make him a household name. Nostradamus's career as a physician was marked by his remarkable work during some of the darkest times in Europe's history, the recurring outbreaks of the bubonic plague. The disease, which had devastated the continent during the Black Death of the 14th century, continued to resurface in cycles throughout Nostradamus's lifetime. It was during these plague years that he gained a reputation as a skilled and compassionate healer, earning both respect and recognition. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Nostradamus approached the plague with methods that were progressive, if not revolutionary, for the time. Traditional treatments, such as bloodletting, were widespread, but often harmful, as they weakened patients already struggling against the disease. Nostradamus rejected these practices, focusing instead on improving sanitation and strengthening the body's natural defenses. One of his most notable remedies was the creation of rose pills. These were made from a blend of rose petals, green cypress sawdust, cloves, calamus, and line aloes. While the pills themselves were ineffective against the plague's bacterial origins, they contained ingredients with mild antiseptic properties, offering some psychological comfort to those who took them. More importantly, Nostradamus emphasized practical measures to contain the spread of the disease. He instructed communities to ensure the rapid removal and burial of corpses, a practice that minimized exposure to infected remains. He also advised cleaning surfaces, ensuring proper ventilation, and promoting personal hygiene, steps that were far ahead of his time. These measures, combined with his calming presence, brought relief to many plague-stricken communities. Nostradamus's work during these outbreaks earned him widespread recognition. He was often called upon to assist towns and villages in southern France, particularly during severe outbreaks in places like Aix-en-Provence and Marseille. In Aix, his efforts were so successful in curbing the spread of the disease that the city authorities rewarded him with a lifetime pension, a rare and significant honor. This period of his life, though marked by professional success, was not without personal tragedy. Nostradamus lost his first wife and 2 children to the very disease he worked so tirelessly to combat. This profound loss likely deepened his resolve to understand and mitigate the suffering caused by the plague. Nostradamus's work as a plague doctor highlighted his resourcefulness and dedication. While the medical science of his time was limited, his focus on hygiene and prevention set him apart from his peers. These experiences not only established his reputation as a healer, but also shaped the worldview that would later influence his writings and prophecies. His legacy as a plague doctor remains a testament to his compassion and ingenuity in the face of one of history's greatest challenges. Nostradamus's life was shaped not only by his achievements, but also by profound personal tragedy. During the early 1530s, he married a young woman in the town of Agen, believed to be named Henriette d'Encausse. Together, they had 2 children and appeared to live a contented life. However, this happiness was tragically short-lived. In 1534, a devastating outbreak of the plague swept through their town, claiming the lives of Nostradamus's wife and both of their children. Despite his skill as a physician, he was powerless to save his family from the relentless grip of the disease. This unimaginable loss left him heartbroken, and the weight of his grief marked a turning point in his life. After the death of his family, Nostradamus found himself unable to remain in Agen. The memories of his wife and children, coupled with a strained relationship with his former patron Jules César Scaliger, compelled him to leave. Thus began a period of wandering and reinvention. For nearly a decade, Nostradamus traveled extensively across France and beyond, visiting Italy, Spain, and perhaps other parts of Europe. These years of movement were a time of both healing and growth. He likely sought solace in new environments, immersing himself in the intellectual and cultural hubs of Renaissance Europe. Along the way, he expanded his knowledge of medicine, astrology, and various esoteric traditions, drawing inspiration from the diverse ideas and practices he encountered. It was during these travels that Nostradamus began to cultivate his reputation as a healer and thinker. His work with plague-stricken communities earned him admiration, while his interest in the mystical and unknown deepened. The experiences and insights he gained during this period would later influence the visionary writings that made him famous. By the mid-1540s, Nostradamus began to rebuild his life. He eventually settled in Salon de Provence, a town that offered stability and a new beginning. There, he married a wealthy widow named Anne Ponsard and started a second family, raising 6 children together. This union not only provided him with personal comfort, but also financial security, allowing him to focus on his intellectual pursuits. Nostradamus's resilience in the face of profound loss is a testament to his character. Though deeply affected by the deaths of his first wife and children, he channeled his grief into his work, emerging stronger and more determined. This period of tragedy and renewal not only defined his personal journey, but also laid the foundation for his later fame as a writer, physician, and visionary. His ability to overcome such immense sorrow and rebuild his life serves as a powerful example of human endurance and the capacity to transform suffering into purpose. By the late 1540s, Michel de Nostredame, now widely known as Nostradamus, had reached a point of stability in his life that allowed him to pivot toward a new chapter, his transition to writing. After years of wandering and working as a plague doctor, he settled in the tranquil town of Salon de Provence. It was here that he rebuilt his life, laying the foundation for the literary endeavors that would secure his place in history. In Salon de Provence, Nostradamus found both personal and professional renewal. In 1547, he married Anne Ponsard, a wealthy widow from a prominent local family. Their union was not only a source of companionship, but also provided Nostradamus with the financial security to explore his intellectual interests. Together they raised 6 children, 3 sons and 3 daughters, while creating a stable and prosperous household. This newfound financial independence, bolstered by years of pensions and payments for his work as a physician, gave Nostradamus the freedom to pursue writing full-time. Freed from the day-to-day demands of medical practice, he began to channel his experiences, knowledge, and imagination into a series of ambitious projects. Salon de Provence became both his sanctuary and his creative workshop. In 1550, Nostradamus published his first almanac, a type of annual booklet that was highly popular in the 16th century. These almanacs contained predictions for the coming year, written in rhyming quatrains that hinted at future events. His first effort was a resounding success, quickly establishing him as a figure of intrigue and mystique. Encouraged by its reception, he continued to produce almanacs annually, each one cementing his growing reputation as a seer. It was during this period that Nostradamus began to conceive his most famous work, the Prophecies. Inspired by the success of his almanacs and drawing from his deep interest in astrology, history, and mysticism, he set out to write a much larger and more enduring collection of predictions. Unlike the almanacs, which focused on specific years, the Prophecies aimed to transcend time, offering cryptic visions of events far into the future. The transition to writing allowed Nostradamus to weave together the many strands of his life: his medical knowledge, his studies of the esoteric, and his observations of human nature. His writings were shaped by the turbulent world he lived in, one marked by political upheavals, religious conflicts, and the ever-present specter of the plague. They were also influenced by his travels and the diverse intellectual traditions he encountered along the way. This phase of his life marked the beginning of Nostradamus's transformation from a respected physician to a cultural icon. His move to Salon de Provence, his second marriage, and his newfound financial stability created the perfect conditions for his creativity to flourish. From this small town in southern France, Nostradamus began crafting the works that would make his name synonymous with prophecy and mystery for centuries to come. In 1550, Nostradamus took a significant step in his journey toward fame by publishing his first almanac, a popular form of writing in 16th century Europe. These compact booklets, filled with predictions, practical advice, and astrological insights for the year ahead, were inexpensive, widely read, and highly influential. For Nostradamus, they represented a perfect outlet to share his thoughts and predictions with a broader audience. The structure of his almanacs was simple, but captivating. Each typically contained 12 quatrains, 4-line rhyming verses, offering cryptic forecasts for the months of the coming year. These predictions were deliberately ambiguous, written in a poetic style that invited multiple interpretations. This vagueness was a strategic choice, as it allowed readers to find meaning in his words, regardless of their circumstances or beliefs. The almanacs also included general astrological commentary, farming advice, and reflections on celestial events, making them practical as well as mysterious. Nostradamus's first almanac was an immediate success. Its blend of mysticism, utility, and poetic intrigue captured the imagination of readers across France, from commoners to members of the nobility. Encouraged by this response, he began publishing almanacs annually, each one eagerly anticipated by an ever-growing audience. These works not only brought him fame, but also established his reputation as a visionary with the ability to glimpse the future. The popularity of the almanac set the stage for Nostradamus's most ambitious project, the Prophecies. Building on the format of the almanacs, he expanded his scope, moving beyond yearly forecasts to compile a vast collection of quatrains that purportedly predicted events far into the future. Unlike the almanacs, the prophecies were not tied to specific years, giving them an enduring quality that allowed readers across centuries to interpret them in light of contemporary events. The almanacs also introduced key elements that would define Nostradamus's later works. His use of symbolic language, references to astrology, and incorporation of historical and mythological themes became hallmarks of his writing. Additionally, the commercial success of the almanacs provided him with the financial means and confidence to pursue the prophecies on a grander scale. While the almanacs were undoubtedly a product of their time, their impact was profound. They not only reflected the Renaissance fascination with astrology and the unknown, but also cemented Nostradamus's status as a cultural figure. For readers in an uncertain world, his predictions offered a sense of intrigue and connection to something larger, even if their meaning remained elusive. The almanacs were the foundation of Nostradamus's legacy. Through these small yet influential works, he honed his style, built his audience, and prepared the ground for the Prophecies, the monumental text that would secure his place in history as one of the most enigmatic figures of his age. In 1555, Nostradamus published the first installment of what would become his most famous work, the Prophecies. This collection of cryptic quatrains, 4-line rhyming verses, set him apart as one of history's most enigmatic figures, cementing his reputation as a visionary whose words would resonate for centuries. The creation of the Prophecies marked a significant evolution in Nostradamus's career as a writer. Unlike his almanacs, which focused on specific years and practical advice, the Prophecies aimed to transcend time. They were written in a deliberately ambiguous and esoteric style, allowing readers from different eras to interpret their meaning in light of contemporary events. Nostradamus himself described the work as an attempt to chronicle the future of humanity, stretching far beyond his own lifetime. The quatrains, divided into 10 centuries, or groups of 100, explore themes of political upheaval, natural disasters, and wars. These were not random topics, but rather reflections of the turbulent world in which Nostradamus lived. The 16th century was a time of profound change and uncertainty, marked by religious conflicts, the rise and fall of empires, and the devastating impact of recurring plagues. In his quatrains, Nostradamus painted vivid, if cryptic, pictures of these events. Some verses speak of kings and queens being overthrown, empires collapsing, and rebellions sweeping across lands. Others foretell natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, and storms, on a catastrophic scale. War, both civil and international, features prominently, with references to battles, sieges, and alliances that would alter the course of history. The language of the prophecies is strikingly poetic, filled with metaphor, symbolism, and allusions to mythology, astrology, and history. Nostradamus deliberately obscured the meanings of his predictions, blending languages such as French, Latin, and Greek, and employing anagrams and coded references. This ambiguity served multiple purposes. It protected him from accusations of heresy or political subversion, while also allowing his work to remain open to interpretation, ensuring its relevance across generations. Despite, or perhaps because of, its cryptic nature, the prophecies captivated readers. The combination of grand, sweeping themes and precise, tantalizing details gave the text an air of both mystery and authority. For instance, references to celestial phenomena, geographic locations, and the passage of time hinted at specific events, while the vagueness of his language invited endless speculation. The themes Nostradamus explored in the prophecies reflected the anxieties and hopes of his time. His quatrains captured the fears of a world on the brink of transformation, speaking to the universal human desire to understand and prepare for the future. Yet their enduring appeal lies in their timelessness. The same verses that spoke to readers in the 16th century continued to resonate in later centuries, with people finding meaning in them during times of crisis and change. The Prophecies was a revolutionary work, not only for its content, but also for its vision. Nostradamus offered a perspective on the interconnectedness of history, the cosmos, and human destiny that was both grand in scope and deeply personal. It was a text designed to intrigue, provoke, and inspire, qualities that have ensured its place in the cultural imagination for nearly 500 years. By the mid-1550s, Nostradamus's fame as a seer and writer had spread far beyond southern France. His annual almanacs and the Prophecies had captivated readers across the country, including members of the French nobility. Among his most prominent admirers was Catherine de Medici, the queen consort of King Henry II, and one of the most powerful figures in 16th century France. Catherine de Medici was deeply interested in astrology and prophecy, reflecting the Renaissance fascination with the mystical and the unknown. In 1555, she came across Nostradamus's almanac for that year, which included a quatrain hinting at threats to the royal family. Intrigued and concerned, Catherine summoned Nostradamus to court, marking the beginning of a significant relationship between the enigmatic prophet and the French monarchy. When Nostradamus arrived at the royal court in Paris, he was met with both fascination and skepticism. However, Catherine was captivated by his insights and his ability to weave the celestial and the earthly into his predictions. Nostradamus became one of her trusted advisors, offering counsel on matters of personal and political importance. One of the most famous incidents that cemented Catherine's faith in Nostradamus's abilities occurred in 1559. Nostradamus had written a quatrain warning of the young lion defeating the older lion in a duel, with the older one dying from a wound through the eye. This prophecy was chillingly fulfilled when King Henry II was fatally injured in a jousting accident, his eye pierced by a splinter from a broken lance. The tragic accuracy of this prediction reinforced Catherine's belief in Nostradamus's gift. Following Henry II's death, Catherine became the regent for her young sons, wielding significant influence over the French throne. She relied on Nostradamus not only as an astrologer, but also as a physician. In 1564, she officially appointed him as royal physician in ordinary to her son, King Charles IX. This role afforded Nostradamus a position of prestige and protection, shielding him from accusations of heresy or sorcery that often plagued figures of his kind. As a royal advisor, Nostradamus provided Catherine with astrological charts and predictions to guide her decisions. She consulted him on matters ranging from the future of her children to the political turmoil of the era, including the brewing religious conflicts between Catholics and Protestants. His counsel, though often veiled in symbolic language, seemed to offer clarity and reassurance during a time of great uncertainty. For Nostradamus, the patronage of Queen Catherine de Medici was a double-edged sword. While it brought him wealth, influence, and a lasting legacy, it also tied him to the volatile politics of the French court. Nevertheless, his relationship with the Queen ensured that his name would be remembered not only as a prophet, but also as a figure who navigated the corridors of power in one of the most tumultuous periods of French history. Through his connection to Catherine, Nostradamus secured a place in the annals of royal history. His role as a trusted advisor to one of Europe's most powerful women underscored his unique blend of mysticism, intellect, and diplomacy, qualities that made him a figure of enduring fascination and influence. Nostradamus, while celebrated by many as a visionary, was not without his critics. Throughout his life, he faced skepticism, accusations, and controversy, much of it rooted in the volatile religious and intellectual climate of the 16th century. His work, straddling the lines between science, mysticism, and prophecy, invited both fascination and suspicion. The era in which Nostradamus lived was one of profound upheaval. The Protestant Reformation had fractured the religious unity of Europe, leading to fierce conflicts between Catholics and Protestants. In France, tensions were particularly high, with frequent accusations of heresy and persecution of those seen as dissenters. Against this backdrop, Nostradamus's work, filled with cryptic predictions and astrological references, often raised eyebrows. One of the earliest controversies in his life came in 1538, when Nostradamus was accused of heresy. The precise reasons are unclear, but some speculate it was due to his outspoken nature or his use of unconventional medical practices. Fearing severe punishment, he fled the region, embarking on years of travel that would expand his knowledge, but also keep him away from the authorities. This early brush with the Inquisition left a lasting impression, shaping how he approached his work in the years to come. As his fame grew, so did the scrutiny. Critics of Nostradamus often dismissed him as a charlatan, accusing him of using vague and ambiguous language to give the illusion of prophecy. His use of multiple languages, French, Latin, Greek, and even anagrams, was seen by some as a deliberate attempt to obscure his meanings and avoid being pinned down. While this ambiguity allowed his work to be interpreted across generations, it also gave skeptics ammunition to question his authenticity. Religious authorities were particularly wary of Nostradamus's writings. His frequent references to celestial bodies and astrology were viewed by some as bordering on sorcery, a dangerous accusation in a time when such charges could lead to execution. To protect himself, Nostradamus often couched his predictions in symbolic language and avoided directly challenging established religious doctrine. Nevertheless, his association with astrology and the esoteric ensured that his work remained controversial. Navigating this treacherous landscape required both caution and cleverness. Nostradamus was careful to emphasize that his prophecies were not derived from supernatural sources, but from careful study of history, astrology, and celestial phenomena. This framing helped him position his work within the intellectual traditions of the Renaissance, which celebrated the blending of science and mysticism. Despite his precautions, accusations of heresy and dark magic persisted. His critics questioned not only the validity of his prophecies, but also his character, with some claiming he sought to exploit public fears for personal gain. Yet for every detractor, there were admirers who saw him as a genius, someone capable of glimpsing the divine order behind the chaos of the world. Perhaps the greatest testament to Nostradamus's resilience was his ability to maintain royal patronage despite the controversies surrounding him. His relationship with Queen Catherine de Medici provided a level of protection that many of his contemporaries lacked. The Queen's endorsement helped shield him from the worst of his critics, ensuring that his work continued to reach audiences across France and beyond. In the end, the criticism and controversy that surrounded Nostradamus only added to his mystique. His ability to navigate the perilous waters of his time, balancing public fascination with the constant threat of persecution, speaks to his skill as both a writer and a public figure. While he was never free from skepticism, his enduring legacy suggests that he succeeded in transcending the doubts of his era, leaving behind a body of work that continues to intrigue and inspire. By the mid-1560s, Nostradamus was in declining health. Years of enduring gout, a painful form of arthritis, had taken their toll, and his condition worsened into severe edema, causing swelling and difficulty in mobility. Sensing his end was near, he reportedly put his affairs in order during the summer of 1566, revising his will to ensure his family was provided for. On the evening of July 1, 1566, Nostradamus is said to have told his secretary, Jean de Chavigny, that he would not survive the night. True to his word, he passed away quietly in his home in Salon de Provence, either late that night or in the early hours of July 2nd. The story of this self-prediction has become one of the most enduring anecdotes about Nostradamus, adding to his mystique as a man who could foresee not only the fate of others, but his own as well. Nostradamus was buried in the Franciscan Church of the Cordeliers in Salon de Provence, in accordance with his wishes. His tomb was designed to reflect his stature, standing upright as a symbol of his unique life and achievements. However, his burial site would later become the subject of both reverence and controversy. In 1700, over a century after his death, his remains were moved to a more prominent crypt within the same church to honor his lasting fame. During the reinterment, a curious discovery was reported. A medallion inscribed with the year 1700 was allegedly found on his remains. This detail, whether true or embellished, further fueled the legend of Nostradamus and his supposed ability to foresee events long after his lifetime. In 1791, during the chaos of the French Revolution, his tomb was desecrated by drunken soldiers who believed he had been a member of the aristocracy. Local authorities intervened to prevent further damage, and the story goes that the soldiers who had disturbed his resting place later met untimely deaths, seemingly fulfilling one of Nostradamus's ominous warnings. Evil will come to the man who opens the tomb. In the years immediately following his death, Nostradamus's reputation continued to grow. His prophecies, initially received with mixed reactions, gained a devoted readership as people interpreted his quatrains in the context of contemporary events. By 1568, just 2 years after his passing, a full edition of the Prophecies was published, containing 942 quatrains. This work became the foundation of his enduring legacy, inspiring fascination and debate for centuries to come. Nostradamus's influence also extended into royal circles. Catherine de Medici, his most prominent patron, remained an advocate for his work, further legitimizing his status as a prophetic figure. His predictions, particularly those involving political upheavals and natural disasters, resonated with a world grappling with uncertainty and change. In the decades following his death, Nostradamus was both revered and criticized. Admirers saw him as a visionary whose work transcended his time, while skeptics dismissed his quatrains as vague and opportunistic. Despite the polarizing opinions, his writings became a cultural touchstone, referenced during periods of crisis and upheaval, as people sought meaning and guidance in his enigmatic verses. Nostradamus's death marked the end of a remarkable life, but it was only the beginning of his enduring legend. His reputation as a prophet, physician, and cultural icon grew steadily, securing his place as one of history's most enigmatic and influential figures. His cryptic quatrains, filled with symbols and mysteries, ensured that his name would be remembered long after his final resting place was disturbed, and his work continues to captivate the imagination of readers around the world. For centuries, Nostradamus's enigmatic quatrains have been interpreted as predictions of significant historical events, from the Great Fire of London to the rise of Napoleon and the cataclysms of World War II. His verses have been linked to pivotal moments in history, though the accuracy and legitimacy of these claims remain a subject of debate. One of the earliest and most famous interpretations involves the Great Fire of London in 1666. A quatrain from the Prophecies reads, "The blood of the just will commit a fault at London. Burnt through lightning of 23's the 6. The ancient lady will fall from her high place. Several of the same sect will be killed." Supporters argue that 23's the 6 could be a cryptic reference to the year 1666, while burnt through lightning evokes the devastating inferno that consumed much of London. However, skeptics note that the fire was not caused by lightning, but by an accident in a bakery. The phrase, "several of the same sect will be killed," is also inconsistent with the fire's relatively low death toll. Despite these discrepancies, the connection to London's fire helped solidify Nostradamus's reputation as a prophet. Another frequently cited interpretation pertains to Napoleon Bonaparte. Nostradamus's quatrains describe a figure who will rise from humble beginnings to command great power, with one verse stating, "A name never before held by a French king. Never was there so great a thunderbolt. Italy and Spain will tremble. The English will be overcome." This aligns with Napoleon's unprecedented ascent from Corsican obscurity to becoming Emperor of France. His campaigns indeed struck fear into Italy, Spain, and England. However, some argue that any period of military conquest could fit such broad descriptions, and Napoleon's name, while distinctive, is not explicitly mentioned. World War II and the rise of Adolf Hitler have also been linked to Nostradamus's writings. A notable quatrain states, "From the depths of Western Europe will be born a poor child. By his tongue he will seduce many. His fame will spread to the Orient. Villainous deeds will destroy the people." Proponents argue that this refers to Hitler, who rose from humble beginnings in Austria, used powerful rhetoric to rally millions, and led Germany into a war that reached as far as Japan. Another quatrain references the word Hiester, which some interpret as a direct mention of Hitler. However, Hiester was also a historical name for the Danube River, casting doubt on this connection. The tragedies of World War II are further associated with quatrains describing fire and destruction. For example, the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are tied to lines such as, "Within 2 cities, there will be scourges, the like of which was never seen. Famine within plague, people put out by steel." The 2 cities reference combined with the unprecedented devastation, seems compelling. Yet critics highlight that famine and plague were common motifs in Nostradamus's era and could apply to numerous other events. Perhaps the most controversial interpretation relates to the attacks on September 11, 2001. A quatrain widely circulated after the tragedy reads, "Two steel birds will fall from the sky on the metropolis. The sky will burn at 45 degrees latitude. Fire approaches the great new city." The imagery of two steel birds falling and the burning sky seem eerily prescient of the Twin Towers' collapse. However, there is no definitive evidence that Nostradamus ever wrote these exact lines, suggesting that this prophecy may have been fabricated in the aftermath. Many interpretations of Nostradamus's work rely on retroactive analysis, applying his quatrains to events after they occur. His vague, symbolic language lends itself to multiple readings, allowing believers to find connections in hindsight. This flexibility is both the strength and weakness of his prophecies, making them timeless, but also open to skepticism. Ultimately, the question of whether Nostradamus truly predicted these events remains unanswered. His work continues to intrigue because it taps into humanity's desire to find meaning in chaos, offering a lens through which history and the future can be examined. Whether prophetic genius or clever ambiguity, the quatrains of Nostradamus endure as a source of endless fascination. Nostradamus's work, shrouded in mystery and intrigue, has left an indelible mark on modern popular culture. Centuries after his death, his prophecies continue to captivate audiences worldwide, inspiring books, films, television shows, and even video games. The enduring fascination with his predictions stems from a potent mix of their cryptic nature, the allure of prophecy, and humanity's constant search for meaning in the unknown. From the 20th century onward, Nostradamus gained renewed prominence during periods of global uncertainty. The World Wars, the Great Depression, and other crises led to surges in interest, with readers seeking to find his foresight in the events unfolding around them. His quatrains became a staple of speculative literature, featured in countless books analyzing his supposed predictions of historical and contemporary events. In the realm of cinema, Nostradamus has often been portrayed as a mystical figure whose predictions eerily align with catastrophic events. The 1981 documentary The Man Who Saw Tomorrow, narrated by Orson Welles, brought his prophecies to a wider audience, dramatizing interpretations of quatrains as predictions of everything from the rise of Hitler to a future apocalyptic war. While criticized for its speculative nature, the film cemented Nostradamus as a cultural icon of prophecy and doom. Television has also embraced Nostradamus's legacy, producing numerous documentaries and series that explore his life and work. Shows like Ancient Prophecies and Decoding Nostradamus dissect his quatrains, often linking them to modern events. His name frequently surfaces in programs about conspiracy theories, blending historical analysis with sensationalism to engage audiences. In literature, Nostradamus's influence extends beyond scholarly interpretations of his writings. Fictional works often incorporate his prophecies as plot elements, using them to create tension or foreshadow events. Authors have woven his enigmatic verses into thrillers, historical dramas, and science fiction, further embedding his legacy into the cultural fabric. Even video games have tapped into the mystique of Nostradamus. In the popular Assassin's Creed series, for example, his riddles serve as puzzles that players must solve, blending historical intrigue with interactive storytelling. By integrating his work into digital entertainment, game developers have introduced Nostradamus to a new generation, ensuring his relevance in an age of technology. The digital age has amplified Nostradamus's reach even further. Social media platforms and online forums teem with discussions about his quatrains, especially during times of crisis. Events like the September 11th attacks, the COVID-19 pandemic, and even climate change have been linked, often tenuously, to his writings, demonstrating the persistent human tendency to seek patterns in chaos. Part of the enduring appeal of Nostradamus lies in the adaptability of his predictions. His verses are vague enough to be interpreted in myriad ways, allowing each generation to find relevance in his words. Whether viewed as genuine prophecy or clever poetry, his work resonates with a universal desire to make sense of the future. Nostradamus's influence on popular culture underscores his unique place in history. He exists not just as a figure of the past, but as a symbol of humanity's ongoing fascination with the unknown. From books to big screens, and from television to interactive media, his prophecies continue to inspire, mystify, and provoke, ensuring that Michel de Nostredame's legacy remains as enigmatic and compelling as his quatrains themselves. Nostradamus's prophecies have inspired awe and fascination for centuries, but they have also faced considerable criticism. Skeptics and scholars have scrutinized his work, raising valid questions about its vagueness, ambiguity, and the challenges of interpreting his writings within their historical and cultural context. One of the most frequent criticisms of Nostradamus's quatrains is their inherent vagueness. Written in an enigmatic style that blends French, Latin, Greek, and Provençal, his verses often rely on symbolic language and metaphors that can be interpreted in multiple ways. This ambiguity allows readers to project their own meanings onto the text, making it possible to connect his words to a wide range of events after they occur. For instance, a quatrain about fire in the great city has been linked to everything from the Great Fire of London to the September 11th attacks, depending on the interpreter's perspective. This flexibility has led to accusations that Nostradamus's predictions are more a product of retroactive analysis than genuine foresight. Critics argue that his verses are so general that they can be stretched to fit almost any historical event. The lack of specific dates or clear timelines compounds this issue, as readers can freely apply his prophecies to different eras and situations. For example, his reference to two steel birds falling from the sky, often linked to the 9/11 attacks, is unverified as an original quatrain and illustrates how loosely his writings can be adapted to modern events. The historical context of Nostradamus's work also presents significant challenges. He lived in a time of great upheaval in 16th century Europe, marked by religious wars, political instability, and frequent outbreaks of plague. These conditions heavily influenced his worldview, and many of his prophecies reflect the concerns of his time. References to kings, queens, and empires in turmoil were not unique predictions, but rather common themes in the writings of the era. His vivid descriptions of war, famine, and natural disasters echo the anxieties of a society familiar with such tragedies. Skeptics also point to the sources of Nostradamus's inspiration, which include classical texts, religious writings, and earlier prophetic works. His extensive borrowing from sources like the Bible, the Mirabilis Liber, and historical accounts raises questions about the originality of his predictions. Rather than foreseeing the future, some argue that Nostradamus was simply repackaging existing ideas in a poetic format designed to captivate his audience. Furthermore, linguistic and cultural barriers complicate modern interpretations. The language of the 16th century differs significantly from today's French, and subtle nuances in Nostradamus's writing can be lost or distorted in translation. Terms that had specific meanings in his time may now carry entirely different connotations, leading to misinterpretations. For instance, his reference to Hister, often thought to predict Adolf Hitler, is more likely a reference to the Danube River, historically called the Ister, or Hister. Another point of criticism lies in the lack of direct predictions that can be independently verified. While Nostradamus is credited with foreseeing events like the rise of Napoleon and World War II, these interpretations are often based on broad patterns rather than precise details. His prophecies rarely include names, dates, or locations that can be definitively tied to specific incidents, making it difficult to evaluate their accuracy objectively. Even during his lifetime, Nostradamus faced skepticism. Some contemporaries dismissed him as a charlatan who capitalized on the fears and uncertainties of his era. His deliberate use of cryptic language, which he claimed was intended to avoid persecution, also fueled doubts about his intentions. Critics argued that his writings were less about prophecy and more about entertainment or self-promotion. Modern analysis often frames Nostradamus as a product of his time, rather than a true seer. He lived in a period of intellectual transition, where Renaissance humanism, medieval mysticism, and early scientific inquiry coexisted. His work reflects this blend, incorporating astrological concepts and classical references alongside imaginative speculation. Despite these critiques, the allure of Nostradamus endures. His writings tap into universal human anxieties about the future, offering both mystery and reassurance in uncertain times. Whether viewed as a visionary or a skilled poet who masterfully manipulated ambiguity, his legacy persists as a testament to the power of interpretation and the enduring fascination with the unknown. For nearly 5 centuries, Nostradamus has remained an enduring figure in the tapestry of history. His mystique, fueled by his cryptic prophecies, continues to intrigue, provoke, and inspire. Born into an era of turmoil and transition, Nostradamus turned his experiences as a physician and his fascination with astrology into a body of work that transcends time. His quatrains, filled with apocalyptic imagery, have etched his name into the annals of history as a prophet of doom. Yet his legacy is more than the sum of his predictions. Nostradamus represents humanity's age-old quest to peer into the unknown, to find meaning in chaos, and to believe in the possibility of foresight. Whether his writings were divinely inspired or cleverly ambiguous, they have become a cultural touchstone, sparking countless interpretations and debates across centuries. Today, Nostradamus exists not just as a historical figure, but as a symbol of the human desire to understand the future. His influence spans literature, art, media, and even the digital age, ensuring that his life and work will continue to captivate generations to come. As time marches forward, so too does the intrigue surrounding this enigmatic man from Provence, whose words still resonate in a world always seeking answers. Thank you for exploring the fascinating life and enduring legacy of Nostradamus with us. His story reminds us of the power of mystery and the timeless allure of the unknown. If you've enjoyed this journey through history and prophecy, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Bytes for more deep dives into the lives of history's most intriguing figures. Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking the extraordinary in the past.